Welcome to You Brew Kombucha. Today I'm going to share some tips on how to make your kombucha taste more mellow, or how to adjust if your kombucha is tasting a little too strong or potent. So if you're finding that your kombucha brew is tasting a little too strong or a little too robust and you'd like to scale back on that punchiness a little bit, here are a few tips that you can use to basically mellow out your kombucha brew a little bit more. So the first of my tips is to change the kind of tea that you're brewing with. I always generally brew with black tea because I love the robustness and the floral maltiness that it brings to the final kombucha product. But if you're not a big black tea fan, or you just generally want something that tastes a little bit more mellow, you can absolutely adjust the type of tea that you're using to brew your kombucha. As long as you're using pure tea that's unflavored tea, your kombucha culture will be able to feed on and digest that liquid. And there's a lot of confusion about what constitutes true tea because honestly, there's just a huge lack of understanding of what tea is, especially in Western culture. But tea actually comes from one plant, the Camellia sinensis plant. And out of that one plant, through different oxidation levels and processes and roasting, you can develop different types and different categories of tea, whether that's white tea, green tea, yellow tea, oolong tea, black tea, or pu'er tea. Those are the main classifications generally of true tea. You might hear some people talk about herbal teas or herbal infusions that they refer to as tea, but technically those are not teas. Those are just tisanes or herbal infusions. Kombucha specifically feeds on true tea from the specific Camellia sinensis plant. Unflavored tea as well. So if you're brewing kombucha, just make sure that you're using true, unflavored tea. I usually brew with black tea, but if you find that's too robust for you, I recommend brewing with white tea or green tea. Here are some options of white tea, some green teas. There's a yellow tea here, which is actually a pretty rare type of tea that's not really commercially produced and is only made by a very small number of craft artisan tea makers. So to be honest, I am hesitant about using these in my kombucha brews because I'm actually such a huge fan of these teas that I love drinking them just straight up. Shout out to my favorite tea sources: White Tu tea, Bear Leaves tea, Kuan Yin tea, West China tea, and Bitter Leaf tea. If you're interested in incredibly fantastic quality teas, definitely check these out. I'll link to them, and some of them have fantastic YouTube channels as well. So definitely give lighter teas like white tea, green tea, and yellow tea a try if you're interested in lessening the robustness of your kombucha brew. Another tip that I have would be to brew Jun. Jun is actually very similar to kombucha, but it's a separate culture altogether. It looks very similar to the kombucha culture, but the Jun culture only feeds on honey and green tea. And so if you actually a lighter, more champagne-like brew, they actually call Jun the champagne of kombucha. I recommend giving Jun a try. And I actually have a whole other video that walks you through how to brew Jun. So if you're curious about that process, go ahead and check that video out as well. There are also ways that you can modify the second fermentation process to make your brew taste less robust. So if you want, regardless of what tea you used in first fermentation, if you're flavoring your kombucha brew and undergoing a second fermentation process to carbonate it, you can do a couple of different things to make that brew less potent. One is by using less flavoring. So if you're using fruit purees or fruit concentrates, just cut that amount in half, whatever it is that you usually use. I usually use about 1/4 cup per 16-ounce bottle. That's just an eyeball metric because usually what I do is just go by taste. So I'll mix in the amount of flavoring, I'll give it a taste before I seal the bottles up, and if it feels like it's at the right concentration level for me, that's when I'll go ahead and seal them all up and let them ferment at room temperature for a few days. So if you want less potent fruit flavoring, then just lessen the amount of fruit that you use, or just use fruit slices or fruit pieces instead of fruit purees or concentrates. That's another way to just get a subtle hint of the fruit flavor without going all in with something super concentrated. Another way that you could make the kombucha more mellow tasting is after the second fermentation process. Say you've already gone through the whole process of making your kombucha, it's refrigerated, it's chilled, you take a sip of it and you find that it's really potent and it's too strong. At that point, what you can just do is either dilute it with any kind of cold brew tea that you have on hand. You could even dilute it with water if you really wanted to. There are a lot of really great sparkling waters that I actually use kombucha as a mixer for, and it makes for a really lighter, refreshing beverage, because I totally get that you don't always want the full potent kind of punch that kombucha gives you. So that's another really great way that you can just have more control over the final outcome of your brew. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If you want more resources on brewing kombucha, definitely check out all the other videos on my channel. Check out youbrewkombucha.com. And if you're curious about these really fantastic teas that I've been plugging, I will link information about them down below. You can also follow me on my kind of somewhat tea-focused Instagram account. I'll put a link to that down below as well. But that's where I share photos and tea tasting notes from all of the different teas that I like to drink, because I'm a big fan of Gongfu Cha tea brewing, and these are just some of my favorite sources to purchase from. So if you're interested in diving into the world of artisan tea, definitely check that out as well. Happy brewing!